Thank you, Fiona, and thank you, Benoit, for the introductory remarks. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure for UNEP FI to be part of a very vibrant ecosystem of organizations and initiatives, I have to say, at the interface between financial markets and climate change, especially in 2015. I need to check whether the slides that I've prepared are actually working or not. So let me just go ahead. There we go. So my name is Remco FISCHER. I coordinate the climate change work at UNEP Finance Initiative. UNEP FI is a public-private partnership between the United Nations Environment Programme and the financial services industry, spanning over 200 financial institutions, largely from the private sector, but not only. And it spans really our membership spans three different industries, in fact: insurance industry, the banking industry, and the investment industry. And just now, we've heard from Fiona about the wealth of action on climate change that is already being delivered by investors and which is being documented through the investor platform on climate action. In addition to that, we felt as UNEP FI that we should be expanding our attention and the focus onto another financial industry that already is and will increasingly be of utmost importance in the transition to the climate economy. And that's, of course, the insurance industry. And to that effect, you were right, Benoit, we are launching today a platform that we hope will mobilize commercial insurers worldwide to make climate change and sustainable development related commitments, in analogy to what we have been seeing come from the community of institutional investors, such as pension funds. This platform is only being launched today, so I need to manage expectations. You won't be able to see any concrete commitments. This morning, of course, we heard a very inspiring commitment already from AXA. We hope as UNEP FI that in coming weeks and months, of course, this platform will help other insurance companies worldwide to make corresponding commitments. Next slide, please. So before looking at the commitments platform itself, it is important to understand the different roles of the insurance industry, in particular as they pertain to climate change and sustainable development. That's important to understand because the leadership that we want to see from insurance companies will materialize also through these different roles, and leadership will be of great importance in each one of them. The core role, and the role that most people think of, is that of insurers as risk carriers, as financial risk managers. Insurers carry risk and enable the transfer of risk. As such, the insurance sector exerts or provides an absorbing capacity for shocks, such as catastrophe losses from extreme weather events that we all know climate change will exacerbate. Through this role, insurance companies increase the financial resilience of individuals, communities, corporates, and even sovereigns. But before they actually engage in risk transfer and risk carriage, insurers play a role also as risk managers. They create an enabling environment, or can create an enabling environment, for physical risk management to take place in the real economy. For instance, insurance companies work in different places around the world with stakeholders such as governments towards risk management approaches such as building codes, land use planning, and zoning, and coastal management. All of these risk management measures, needless to say, will be essential in society's efforts to adapt to climate change. Lastly, of course, insurers are also institutional investors and can relate to many of the things that Fiona was alluding to in her presentation and can play the corresponding roles. Next slide, please. The platform that we are announcing today is not materializing in an empty space, nor is it an ad hoc effort. It is part of a comprehensive and long-term framework of normative principles that UNEP FI has developed in partnership with the insurance industry. These were launched in 2012 at the Rio Conference on Sustainable Development and have been endorsed by the UN Secretary General, obviously as you can see from this slide, and by all the CEO members, all of the CEOs of all the members of the PSI. In only 3 years, the PSI have been adopted by insurers worldwide, representing 15% of world insurance premium and $9 trillion in assets under management. Given the traction that we have seen to date on the principles, which are a broad framework on sustainable development, we hope that we can catalyze or we can use that traction this year in 2015, more specifically on climate change and other related agendas. So we're hopeful that the platform will yield results quickly. Next slide, please. Oh, this slide is not as I prepared it, obviously. I'm not that creative. But these are the 4 principles, and I'm not going to go into much detail on them, but each one of them relates to a different sphere of influence that insurance companies can have at their disposal. The first one is the most immediate sphere of influence, including the very core risk management and investment activities of each company. The second principle relates to how insurers can work together with their clients and business partners. The third on how insurance companies can work together with governments. And the fourth principle is a disclosure and accounting mechanism. But with the next slide, I'll move quickly into the area of commitments, which is obviously what we want to discuss here today. And already in March of this year, the PSI issued a statement called United for Disaster Resilience. And it's been backed by 40 insurance companies already and was presented at the Sendai conference on disaster risk reduction in Japan. This was a collective industry-wide commitment to help support implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which was agreed on in Sendai by UN member states. It focuses, of course, on disasters across the board, including man-made, biological, and other disasters, but extreme weather events, of course, are included as part of that framework. Next slide, please. And so beyond the collective industry-wide commitments as that I just spoke about, the PSI sees the need to unlock, catalyze, and document more concrete commitments by individual insurance organizations such as those that we have seen this morning. And this year, as you can see from the slide, provides a historic opportunity for the insurance industry to show disaster risk leadership and investment leadership across a number of UN agendas. Outstanding, of course, is COP21 and the road to COP21 in Paris this year, including this conference here today. The types of commitments made by each insurance company will be specific, measurable, and time-bound. Insurers will be able to make commitments, in particular in their roles as risk managers and risk carriers and as supporters of government action. Next slide, please, which is my final slide, I promise. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You can go to the UNEP FI PSI website to have a look at the framework. I didn't manage to put it into the slides. But you'll see that there is commitment category, there is, as I said in the beginning, categories for commitments along these 4 or 5 boxes. And I'll give you a couple of examples on each one of them so you have a feeling of what we're talking about. As risk managers, insurance will be able to use this platform to voice commitments such as the following: to implement risk management processes and insurance underwriting guidelines that promote disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation and mitigation, to conduct increased, additional, or more sophisticated catastrophe risk analysis, and to build risk models that integrate climate change, environmental, and social vulnerability factors, to implement also literacy programs on climate and disaster risk and insurance towards better social and financial inclusion and more widespread insurance coverage. The next role, as risk carriers, insurers will be able to use this platform to submit commitments to develop new products or increase insurance capacity of existing products for low-income, vulnerable and underserved communities, to develop new products or increase insurance capacity of existing products for climate and disaster risk, and to develop new products or increase insurance capacity, this is a bit repetitive, of existing insurance products for renewables, green buildings, zero and low emission transportation, and energy efficiency. As investors, insurers will be able to refer through this platform to the commitments they are making through the investor platform that Fiona just presented. And then lastly, as an industry working in partnership with governments, regulators, and other key stakeholders, insurers will be able to commit to supporting prudential policy and regulatory frameworks that promote disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation mitigation, and that improve access to insurance. In closing, We have earlier today heard what is possible in terms of determined commitments and leadership from individual insurance players. We trust that other insurance companies will follow the example of AXA and others, and we hope that this platform, open for submissions until the end of September, will provide a ready-made vehicle for this. Thank you very much.